Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your testimony. I don't know if you've been listening to any of the conversation that's going on today, particularly about House Bill 5448, which I think is the one that actually has something to do with voting. I didn't, be honest with you, I didn't understand you testifying on the other bill, the League of Women Voters. I don't know what their intersection is with the environmental justice cause for the state of Connecticut is. Maybe you can answer that as a side question. But I'm just curious if you heard the testimony of many folks opposed to Section 2 of 5448 about the potential of making law-abiding gun owners into criminals just by enacting this policy, and if that gives you any pause about supporting publicly or acting on behalf of the League of Women Voters in support of it. Through you, Madam Chairman.
I have listened to the testimony. I understand that the bill, the 1,000 feet rule, need to be moderated to work successfully in this environment. But I will say I'm an election worker myself, and the concept of guns nearby a polling place has always made me extremely nervous. And therefore, I am very strongly in favor of this part of the bill. In terms of your first question about why the League of Women Voters would advocate for or support the Environmental Rights Act, we advocate and support many not related to voting, but related to rights that we think people should have in the state of Connecticut and all over the United States. If you look at what the National League does, they have many positions that are on housing and on healthcare and things that are fundamental to the rights of people in the United States.
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much for that answer. I appreciate it. I would just point out that that there's conflicting arguments about what rights are being protected or advocated for. For example, I've just had several conversations defending individual property rights, which is a key ingredient of our American society, and to me that's at stake in SB 193. And I always wonder when I hear nonpartisan organizations come forward and testify in favor or in opposition to clearly partisan policy items and want to claim their nonpartisan status. So, and I don't mean to call you out. I just thought it was very interesting that you're clearly from the League of Women Voters, and the environmental bill is quite controversial and quite political and quite partisan. And I thought it was interesting that you would interject on it. And I certainly understand your apprehension. But I mean, do you feel this way about guns in the possession of your fellow citizens or law enforcement, or about all firearms? Through you, Madam Chairman.
For the first part of your commentary, I do not feel that the Environmental Rights Act is partisan. For number two, certainly police officers having guns is not something I am concerned about, and we have certainly had police officers come into polling places with guns, and that certainly does not disturb me. I think we've seen enough in our world right now where with shootings that occur all over the place, no matter where you are, church, movies, restaurants, all over the place, that it's a frightening thought when you're in a place where there's a lot of people coming in and out, that there may be someone with a gun.
Through you, Madam Chairman, I appreciate that commentary. I'll just assure you that the Senate Bill 193, the environmental bill, is absolutely a partisan bill. I can tell you that as a member of one of the political parties. And as far as your commentary, so it seems to me you're okay with police officers having firearms. And look, I mean, don't get me wrong. I completely understand. We're all on heightened alert in Connecticut. I think crime is out of control in our state. We've got record numbers of, car thefts and juvenile crime and street takeovers and, people being attacked at the ATM and things that I think are far more common today than they were in the past. But generally speaking, those crimes are not being committed by law-abiding gun owners exercising their constitutionally protected Second Amendment. So do you have a concern with law-abiding gun owners who are simply, your neighbors who are there trying to defend themselves, their children, their property, and potentially you in a situation like that? That's what I'm trying to make the distinction. I'm trying to understand this. I mean, the items that you mentioned, of shootings at schools and shootings at movie theaters, those were committed by criminals that are not, to be equated with people that are merely, facilitating their Second Amendment freedoms. Those are criminals that don't care much about our laws. Obviously, shooting up a school or a movie theater is already against the law. So they're not going to care much about this law. But my concern about 5448 Section 2 is that this is going to affect people that do obey laws, and it's going to make them less safe, and then all of us less safe because they won't be there to potentially prevent something from happening. I'm just wondering if you have a reaction to that, and more specifically, you said you're okay with law enforcement officers having firearms near a polling place, but does that extend to citizens? And the reason I'm asking you is you put yourself forward as a spokesperson for the League of Women Voters, so I'm just asking what their position is. Through you, Madam Chairman.
Our position is to make the job of a poll worker as safe as possible, and we think that this bill achieves that. I can tell you, as a poll worker for myself, it's harder and harder to recruit poll workers, as has been stated in previous testimony. And when I was at the training for the last election that I worked, it came up whether or not guns were allowed in polling places, because as I stated in my testimony, not all polling places are schools where guns are not allowed. And actually, one of the people giving the training thought that a law had already been passed that guns were not allowed in polling places. And I had to tell them that that was not true, but that there was legislation that was going to be proposed to do that. I'm not going to enter into an argument with you about, law-abiding citizens having guns. Certainly, law-abiding citizens can certainly have guns. That's not something that I, have any purview to talk about.
Through you, Madam Chairman. Thank you for that. And again, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm trying to understand. You've said a few different things that I didn't follow. I mean, one of your first comments is that you want to protect rights, and the League of Women Voters often speaks about different issues that have to do with rights, even if they're not elections. But the Second Amendment is a right, and then, you said that you're okay with police officers at the polls. And you also said that you have no problem with law-abiding citizens possessing guns. Apparently not around polls, I guess, is what I should take away from that. I don't have any more questions. And forgive me, I know this came across as somewhat confrontational. It wasn't intended to. I was really just trying to find out the position of the League of Women Voters. Very specifically about some of these issues, because these are important topics that are going to be voted on in this committee, and I'm very fearful that this particular bill is going to make felons out of a lot of very innocent and very decent people, and maybe me, and I'm not in favor of that for sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman.